I mentioned, other issues we have at the Dell are associated with beach erosion, and we've got erosion and deposition occurring, as we know, on the coast everywhere. But in our top left-hand picture, we're starting to get a considerable, we call terminal scour, on the other side of the Mineral Springs area. Neil knows that area quite well, and I'm quite concerned we're going to lose that area, or lose the heritage, the significance of some of those wells and the remains there. So some sand came available from Point Richards, and Bellarine Bayside basically offered us that sand if we paid to load it, carted away. It was sand that was dug out of the boat ramp, which they need to do probably about 4, sometimes 5, 6 times a year. So we opportunistically took that sand and took it down to the Dell. We didn't place it on this beach. We didn't have money to take machines around the corner and do it to a prescription, but we're fairly confident that if we placed it adjacent to the lower car park, just at the upper intertidal zone, the next time we got a westerly and northwesterly blow, it would suspend that sediment, move it around the corner and dump it on the beach. And that's what it's done. It's done that twice now. And as you can see, we're starting to build that beach, and I think we've gained about vicinity between 8-9 metres in that area. And we're starting to get like a layer of sand that we didn't have. Probably we've increased the sand depth there to at least 500, 600 mil initially, and then it peters out as we move down. I've got another image on this slide that is an example of sand fencing. And it's a technique I'm keen to use, and I'm going to put it in down at the Dell here. Again, we've got 2 purposes for it. One, to protect or try and exclude people from getting into those lower cliffs along here, because they still have some undercuts. They're on the or crawling in or walking too close to them in case they get bombed on the head or something. The other thing about sand fencing is that it's quite proven, broadly used in the States and Europe, not only for sand but snow. I don't know how they use it for snow, probably to exclude snow from coming through. But how it works is that it's essentially about 50% permeability. That means for every slat of timber, there's a gap of the same amount. So we've got our water, our beach, and we place our sand fencing here. So we've got our little clips there. When we get a storm surge, again, the waves are quite laden, the water's laden with suspended sediment. It usually goes in, hits there, scours some more, and it goes straight out. What the sand fencing does is, when that water comes in, the velocity drops to an amount. And of course, it depends on how laden it is and what size the sediment is, but it drops to a certain amount where some of that sediment deposits behind your fence, fills in behind your fence. So we're keen to trial that. It's a fairly soft engineering approach, driving some piles, stringing the fence. It doesn't work, people don't like it, we'll take it away. But I'm confident we'll get some results out of that technique. I just thought I'd give you an example of where the beach was at early in the 19th century. You can see we probably lost 12, 14 metres of foreshore and beach along that section of the coast. In this slide you can see that we've got this scour down at that indentation. Why that sand went, we've got anecdotal evidence that in the 1930s people here started removing sand and shell from the beach. Shell I think they burnt for lime as an additive to cement, I'm right. And sand was used as probably a byproduct. But many tonnes, many cubic metres of sand was removed from that beach and in other areas along Clifton Springs. And we believe that is probably what started to really accelerate erosion on our part of the coast down here. The slide in the middle is taken recently, and you can see a little gain already starting to occur. I would like to keep the arrangement going that we have with Bellarine Bayside, and every time they've got 1,000 cubes of sand for me, I can bring it in here. Sometimes they need to use it themselves because they get quite scared. They get some damage, as they did 10 days ago down at Grassy Point, St Leonard's, and in fact we also had we lost about 3 metres of coastline down at Point Richards, and we put 1,000 cubes there last week. So it's a handy resource, but unfortunately we don't get a lot of deposition along this section of the coast. We don't have what they call a very good sand budget. In fact, got a very poor budget. So some of the projects that haven't commenced yet, they've been ongoing works, they will be ongoing. I did briefly mention that we've got some monitoring at the Dell, and that consists of instruments that are in the ground. So we've got what we call extensometers that tell us lateral movement in any slope. We've got a number of those around the amphitheatre of the Dell. We've also got some inclinometers, which are down boreholes, and they can tell us the shear movement between 2 different slabs of earth. They hook up to a transponder up in our toilet block, and a locked up room there, which then is transmitted to the University of Wollongong. They host a website that we can access, and we can get, in fact, real-time readings of what's happening at any one time. So that allows us to manage the Dell and keep it open. If we detect some serious movements where we've got access paths, we can act and close those immediately, which we ended up doing last winter and into the spring. We didn't open them until just before Christmas, I think, last year. One section of walking track. We hope to be improving that system, get a little bit more sophisticated, so that if we detect a serious movement, it comes through on an SMS to my phone, and I'm going to get out of bed and close some gates. So that's the level we're looking at for that area. And there are a number of other areas in council that we're really considering those systems as well. Curlewis. This slide got going again at the peak of the wet last year, and even though it's a shallow slide, meaning that it's really only the top 1.5 to 2 metres of earth moved, the earth actually just pulled apart, shattered, and started moving down the slope. This is quite a tricky one to remedy, so the advice that we've received from our consulting geotechnical engineer is that this needs a number of treatments. So for one, we're looking at diverting any stormwater that currently runs down the road and accesses this site. We'll divert that through a series of drains and get it away from the most vulnerable area. We will also place 2 retaining walls across the slope, one midway and one on the lower slope, to try and prevent the whole lot going, because once one section starts going, it's the other section can start pushing the lower section. Stability buttress wouldn't work here because it's so loose that it's not one landmass coming down the slope, it's just a shattered fragment of slope already that's failed. So what would happen, we only put a stability buttress at the bottom, it would just come down and just over the top and into the water. So, but we do need a rock revetment to prevent toe erosion at the bottom. We need to strip topsoil off here, compact it, mechanically compact it, get the topsoil back reseeded. So it's a complex project, this one, but we won't really get in there and start that until, we'll start the drainage work sooner than later to divert water away, but we really need to get, that land needs to be drier than it is now, and we won't get in there until much later in at least the calendar year, if not earlier next year. Improved access to the Dell, as many of you know, no vehicles have been allowed in the Dell, I think, since about 2004. And the main vehicle access track was ripped up, and a lot of the fill that lied on was taken out. So currently we have a timber staircase near the lookout on the western side, and a very steep, what was all bitumen, but now there's a section broken up bitumen, so it's bitumen and gravel, but very steep and not very friendly for anyone that it's not going around in the seconds or first at Drysdale, I think. It's a goat track. So we've looked at two options. One in yellow is to be still over the western side, so over near the 18th fairway, and it's a bit of a tortured route, and there's still some problems with that going over unstable land, and it makes for a longer path down to the bottom. Our preferred route at this stage, and we're still going through the process of having it surveyed, is the alignment shown in green, where we're taking the majority of the old vehicle route down to the belt, with the exception of the jagged or the zigzag area, which we're proposing a number of boardwalks or platforms, with a small section of cadence and slope away to get up to here. Now, the reasoning from all this is to try and lower the grade. So we're not steering people down a very steep section of track, we're trying to lower the grade. The fortunate part is we can lower the grade, and we can reach a 1 in 10 grade, which used to be the Australian standard for oilability access. However, now the standard is 1 in 14. And no matter how we try and what we try to do, we can't make 1 in 14. So it looks like we'll build the track at 1 in 10 and try and improve access through facilitating access with handrail and some clear line marking on the edges of that track and the boardwalk area to assist people who are visually impaired. So that's our strategy there. I'm starting to wrap up. I just want to sort of go back a few years that as part of a grant that was funded through enhancing our beaches by DSE, some substantial infrastructure was put in between, basically along Edgewater Drive, that Foreshore section, in the form of 3 rock groins in the area about 100 metres long, and a considerable section of rock revetment that was placed. In trying to bring to that section of coast some more amenity and also to aid in some further coastal protection, DSE and our DEPI have come back to us and offered to do a sand renourishment or beach renourishment along a section of that coast. So again, it warranted another geotechnical study, which was done, and the section of coast that was selected was at the western end of Edgewater Drive, starting between what I call the first and the second groin, so in front of the second dell, or moving west from the end of Edgewater Drive, western end of Edgewater Drive towards the west. You might be able to recognise it a little bit better in the next slide, but just finally, along with that, we really need to also look at this drainage outfall that would cause problems when that beach gets renourished. As we know, we get a severe rain event, we get scouring of that beach, and we end up with a nasty stagnant pool of water on that beach. So we'll be rediverting that through a spillway on the other side of the beach that gets renourished. And this slide, and I think that poster represents the scale of the works there. So the stormwater spillway on the eastern side of the groin, reconfigured groin and upgraded, so we're not getting sand moving through the groin, so we're not losing any sand from that beach compartment, and then the beach renourishment.
Just to make a note, the sand will be in sand colour, not green, that you can see there.
Going back into my work on seagrass aquatics.
Can you imagine going back and painting it every year?
And I think I forgot my sample, but did you bring your sample of sand?
I forgot my sample as well, but the same sand specification we're using for this one is what was used at Port Arlington Beach. So if anyone's been down there recently, you'll be able to see the type of the feel, the colour, the size, and we're using exactly the same specification, so we'll be expecting almost exactly the same type of sand down there. But we do have some samples. If you were interested, we can arrange to get that sent down here to the local community centres that we call them.
So that budget for this is coming from
DPI,
yeah.
What's the program for now? Protecting the
really hard. I was in about beaches, it was much similar.
Oh yeah, not much easier, but it's yeah. So it's a bid that DSE got a couple of years ago, just under $9 million to renourish beaches by around over 4 years. So we're into sort of, this is our third year.